If you're anything like me, having lived under a rock for the last year and a bit, you've likely not done more than taken a quick glance at Aya and Varzia's offerings. Aya genuinely might be one of the most handy resources in the game, getting you access to both vaulted prime parts for weapons and warframes alike, of course depending on the drops made available in the Prime Resurgence. And not to mention, it's a pretty lucrative platform if you're willing to hold on to your goods for a bit. That being said, I'll be running you through the best spot to farm yourself some Aya, alongside some general build suggestions to help you get through the mission a bit easier. So, starting off the mission you'll be keeping an eye out for, it will be the level 40 to 60 bounty on Deimos, which can be found by interacting with Mother. However, this isn't the full story. Most of these bounty missions can be run pretty quick solo, usually ending around the 10-minute mark, but there is one bounty mission type in particular that will save you a good few minutes per run. The mission type in question is Brute Force. Having farmed Aya myself for quite a few hours now, I've managed to crack Brute Force down to about 7 minutes on average, which if you're getting even just 2 Aya per run, that's going to net you just shy of 20 Aya per hour. The only issue is that Brute Force isn't always available, so let's have a look at how to fix that. So, say for example you show up to Deimos, check out the bounties, and the leveled 40-60 bounty is something like 4 science. All you need to do is select the mission, and from there either fail it by walking away from the objective if that's possible, or just run it. As long as it's not something like core samples, you'll likely finish it within 10 minutes anyway, and you'll still have a great chance of getting Aya as a reward. From there, whether you failed or completed it, keep an eye out on your map for these icons. These are Mother spawn locations in the open world, and you can start a Brute Force mission from here. It might take a moment to find the mission you're looking for, as the Mother spawns will all have different bounty offerings, but once you've found Brute Force, select it and get going. Otherwise, that's it, so feel free to go off and get to work. Just make sure you're also completing the bonus objectives, as this will give you an extra reward at the end of the bounty, potentially giving you some extra Aya. And on that, the bounty is usually faster solo, so as long as you're comfortable dealing with the enemies on Deimos, go in solo and you should fly through the mission. But I've got a little bit more to share for those of you who aren't as familiar with Deimos or the bounties on offer there, so if you'd like a bit of extra info, then stick around and I'll go over the Brute Force mission and some build suggestions for the bounty. Cracking on with how the bounty works, there are 5 stages to the Brute Force bounty. One thing to bear in mind is that the bounty stages will rotate in a random order, but you will always have the same stages. So I'll be going through them as 1 to 5, but just keep in mind the order in which you complete them may be different. So starting off the Purifier, all you're going to do is rock up to the objective and start blasting enemies until a power cell drops. From here, pick it up, run over to the Purifier and just wait a moment. You'll start seeing yellow markers pop up, and these are the samples you need to collect. To get the bonus, you need to collect all 15 samples within 5 attempts, which solo is a walk in the park. The Infested Chas. This one is one of the quicker bits of the mission in which you'll be directed to a central tumor. All you have to do is attack it to get started, and from there 3 small trails will start to form from it. Either follow these glowing trails or hop in your Archwing and fly around the area to find all 3 of these satellite tumors, which are usually located around the edge of a yellow circle on your map. You'll need to get up close and personal, as they can't be damaged from outside the glowing barrier, but once you have all 3, race back to the central tumor you started with and crack it open, collecting the cash within and running for the hills. For the Hive stage, you just run up to the waypoints and nuke the Hive. More often than not, you'll have to sit and wait for enemies to spawn before you can destroy it completely, but occasionally you will get lucky and be allowed to destroy it in one go. But this is pretty rare. However, that is literally it. Just keep in mind the 3rd Hive is usually the toughest in terms of enemies you'll deal with, often spawning in a Saxon. For bait infusion, this stage has 2 parts. The first of which is to rock up to the area and kill the enemies to collect bait for the infested cauldron in the centre of the waypoint. You'll need 15 bait to get things started solo, but otherwise, once you have your bait, interact with the cauldron to get started with the second part, in which you'll have to kill enemies within the bubble. And this bubble becomes visible upon activating the cauldron. Otherwise, just take your time killing enemies once they get close enough, and you'll finally spawn in the baited target, which you'll have to kill. This isn't a particularly hard target to kill, but having some good damage available does make this bit a bit faster. And finally, Grineer Assistance. This is a super simple step and one of the stages you'll definitely notice goes a lot faster solo. Literally all you need to do is just beat the Grineer, kill more than them, and also, not to mention with the bonus, just make sure you keep your score above 50% compared to these, and you're done. And just finally, to speak about the rewards here, with each stage of the bounty you complete, you will be rewarded for your efforts from a fixed drop table. This is the reason too that you'll want to do the level 40 to 60 version of the bounty, as you will get 5 stages, of which 4 can award you ire. And with the bonus completion, you can get a 5th, meaning that per bounty, if you have incredible luck on your side, you'll be able to get 5 ire per bounty. But now you know what to expect in the 5 stages of the bounty, let's have a quick look at some build suggestions just to make the runs a little bit easier for yourself. Now, for the most part, I will say that the weapons you choose to use are going to be completely personal preference. The only changes you'll definitely want to make are swapping your viral builds for corrosive, or alternatively you can use the Damo's infested weaknesses, being blast and gas damage, to your advantage. However, I have got 2 frame suggestions which will make dealing with the infested a walk in the park. First off is Mesa. So far in all the gameplay you'll have seen, I've been rocking a pretty basic Mesa build, just modding for relatively equal stats with a focus on efficiency. This is so that we can spam our 4th ability without burning through all of our energy, and not to mention as well, Mesa's 2 will buff your damage and her 3rd will give you all the way up to 95% damage resistance, meaning you don't need to waste a slot on something like adaptation. If you're interested in the build I'm using, then have a go with this, but she's not that hard to mod. Just as well, on her regulators, I'm using a corrosive heat build, which you can see here. Otherwise, my other suggestion is Ember. I personally really enjoy using Ember against the infested, as the heat damage over time, even with a low strength build, is more than enough to either kill the enemies outright or at least keep them distracted. On top of this, using your 2nd, you'll start to at 50%, working up to 90% damage reduction alongside the ability to completely armor strip. Using your 3rd when your 2nd ability fully charges, helping out with any of the tougher armored enemies you'll run into. However, I usually prefer running Mesa just because her 4th can do it all. Using Ember, you'll have to rely a lot more on your weapons to kill, as opposed to Mesa where you can pop your 4th and likely get away with just sitting in one place. But really, that's it for farming ire. It's not the toughest thing in the game, but it can certainly be time consuming. Otherwise though, the only other thing to say is thank you for sticking around again. If you've made it this far, I'm quite surprised. Usually people don't. But that being said as well, I'm obviously trying to finally get into making the content I promised. And yeah, there should hopefully be more from here. So otherwise, I will see you in the next one.